You've spent weeks meticulously crafting a layout, and it's perfect. The night before you release it, you decide to try it out in Internet Explorer just to make sure everything looks okay. And it looks like this. Everything you work so hard to create is completely broken in IE. Well, don't worry, this happens all the time. All browsers have rendering quirks that break certain layouts. Some are worse than others, but unless you're actively testing in different browsers, chances are good your CSS will fail somewhere. In this video, I'm going to show you how to decide which browsers to support and walk you through how to test your code in each one of those browsers. I'll also show you where to find help if you run into a bug. Before you test, you need to decide which browsers you're going to support and which ones you're going to ignore. In an ideal world, you'd be able to support everything. However, supporting all browsers is extremely time-consuming. In my experience, supporting IE7 and IE8 doubles the amount of time you'll spend writing CSS, and supporting IE6 quadruples it. In most cases, you'll want to look at your target audience and decide what's reasonable. You can find this information in Google Analytics. If you go to your audience overview, and then down at the bottom under System, if you click on Browser, you can see which browsers your visitors are using. In my case, almost all of my traffic is coming from Chrome, Safari, and Firefox. Spending a bunch of time supporting Internet Explorer probably wouldn't be worth it for me. But for you, your numbers might look different. If your site relies on a particular technology, then your browser support will be determined by that technology. You can find out which browsers support which technologies at Can I Use. Let's try searching for Flexbox. You can see here that Flexbox works in most browsers. IE10 only supports the 2012 syntax, and Android 4.1 and 4.3 only support the old Flexbox specification. Up at the top of the screen, you can see the global usage, and in our case, Flexbox is supported by 95.4% of browsers with prefixes. Once you've decided which browsers you're going to support, the next step is to test your site in each one of them. Now, testing desktop browsers is much easier than testing mobile browsers. For Chrome and Firefox, you just download the browser and open up your site in it. Safari comes pre-installed on OS X, but it isn't available for Windows. Microsoft has graciously released a collection of virtual machines to test Internet Explorer. In my case, I'm using a Mac, and I would like to download IE10 on Windows 7 for VirtualBox. All I have to do is click download.zip, and I'll have the file. Once I have it downloaded, I just open up VirtualBox, and I click Start. Chrome DevTools contains a handy feature to test your site on smaller screen sizes. To use it, open up the DevTools and click on the Toggle Device Mode icon. Here, you can select the device up here to test different screen sizes. When I'm using this mode, I find it helpful to dock the developer tools to the right side of the screen so that my site has more space. The best way to test your code on mobile browsers is by running it on real phones. It's possible to run your code in emulators, but in my experience, you tend to miss things. I'd recommend asking friends who are trading in their phones if you can have their old ones. You can also purchase phones on Craigslist or eBay, but be careful that you don't get scammed or you're not buying a stolen phone. For Flexbox, you don't really have to worry about testing Chrome for Android, since it uses Blink under the hood, which makes it fairly consistent with the desktop Chrome. However, the Android stock browser is a different story. For Flexbox, you need to test 4.1, 4.3, 4.4, and 5 all independently. This probably means using 4 separate devices, each with a different version of Android installed. Since that can be really time-consuming and expensive to set up, I would recommend using a tool called Browser Stack. Browser Stack makes it really easy to open up your website on any device. It might seem a little bit expensive at $29 per month, but if you're doing professional web development, it makes it much, much easier to get up and running. So you've tested your site across multiple browsers and you found a bug. Now what do you do? Well, there are a few different places you can look for answers. The first place you should check is Flexbox. Flexbox is a fantastic resource that lists out many of the major Flexbox bugs. It also contains workarounds for each bug. If you don't see your bug in this list, be sure to also check the issues, which contains many more bugs that people have reported. The next place to try is Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow is a question and answer site that makes it really easy to find answers to almost any development question you might have, including Flexbox. If you have a question you'd like to ask, there are a few important points to keep in mind. The first is to check to see if your question has already been answered. Next, you'll want to try and create a simple version of your problem. It's easier for people to help you solve your problem if you don't post a mountain of code with it. When you're asking your question, try to be specific. Finally, pay attention to spelling, grammar, and formatting. Your question is much more likely to get answered if people can read it. The last place you can look for answers is in the browser bug trackers. Every major browser has a bug tracker you can use to search for bugs. Microsoft's is the Microsoft Connect Feedback Center. Chrome's is Chromium Issues. Firefox's is Bugzilla. Finally, Safari's is WebKit Bugzilla. These tools are often incomplete and difficult to search through. However, if you take the time, it's possible to find answers you won't see anywhere else. In this video, you've learned how to determine which browsers to support for your project, how to test your site on those browsers, and where to look when you found a problem. If you're looking for an extra challenge, try testing some of the layouts you've previously built in older browsers. Then, see if you can use the progressive enhancement techniques you learned in an earlier video to fix them.